Ghostbusters Back in Town issue number 3. I actually really enjoyed this issue because I was really skeptical about them bringing in the villain of Ghostbusters 2 into this comic series. If you don't know what this comic series is, a brief refresher. It is a bridge in between Ghostbusters Afterlife and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And it's like a mid-quel comic, basically filling in the gaps. Because if you watch Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, they're just kind of in New York with not really much setup as to how they got there. I mean, it's not a huge deal, right? Because if you've seen those movies, it's pretty obvious how they got there and all the details with that. But just having this little brief adventure, kind of filling in those gaps a little bit, seeing the family adjusting to living in New York, which we didn't get a lot of in Frozen Empire. But this comic is good. Kind of filling in those gaps a little bit. But anyways, I didn't like last month's issue because I thought bringing in the villain from Ghostbusters 2 was a little bit silly because the Ghostbusters franchise needs to fucking let go of the older Ghostbusters movies. And I know that's hard to say for some people because they're like, well, yeah, but like it's Ghostbusters. Why do you want them to let go of the older movies? You kind of want them to be there. And I get what you're saying, but at the same time, this franchise is so held back by that because I mean, my favorite parts of Frozen Empire were when they introduced new shit, and that was my favorite part of it. The worst parts of Afterlife and the new movie is just when they're like bringing old shit back. It brings down the whole thing. But I think this comic does actually a good thing where they are actually not necessarily hinting at bringing back the villain from Ghostbusters 2 like I thought, because this issue basically explains that, hey, they did some shit, and back in the day, the Ghostbusters did some shit, and there's this other ghost that has ties to that older villain, and they're kind of, so you have a new ghost with new lore added on to that second movie, which is, one of the worst parts of the original, which is, for some people, when it came to the original movies, it was the worst one. It still is out of the original 2 movies anyways, but to see it actually expanded upon and given new life within this comic was just really cool. So I think if you're a Ghostbusters fan and you really love Ghostbusters 2, it's an interesting issue. I'm curious to see where they take it. I don't know if it's going to be, perfect or anything, but I did like the attempt to kind of expand some of the lore here in Ghostbusters while still references the original. And that's the thing. If they did it like this comic where you're reintroducing old characters but giving them new depth and expanding upon things, great. That's great. Really do that. But yeah, I like this comic so far. I'm curious. I think there's only 4 issues, so I'm thinking around the last issue next month. Might be wrong about that. How many issues there are, I will keep reviewing them because I do really enjoy this comic series so far. Let me know your thoughts, like, share, and subscribe.